In this video, we're going to see another example of, surprise, a string program. Let's click New Class. I'm going to make this a console program, and let's name this the PalindromeChecker. Now, if I asked you what a palindrome is, what would you tell me? It's actually a word or a phrase that's the same forwards and backwards. So down here, I'm just going to put some examples like mom is a palindrome, or kayak is also a palindrome. The classic ones are race car is a palindrome, taco cat. My favorite, which I'm not going to type out because it's a little long, is go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hog, is a palindrome. Very exciting. We're going to write a program that actually checks if some string that's entered in is in fact a palindrome. So to do this, let's first read in a string. So I'm going to say string str equals read line, enter a string. And then let's do this. If is palindrome str equals true, let's print line, it's a palindrome. And we're very excited about that, so we got to put an exclamation point. Else, oops, let's print line, nope, not a palindrome. Is palindrome not something included in the standard Java library? So let's go ahead and write it. Public. Now, what's the return type of is palindrome? If I asked you, is this string a palindrome, what would your answer to me be? Wouldn't it actually be true or false or yes or no? So this is actually going to return a Boolean. Is palindrome. And it's going to take in a string, let's say str, as a parameter. Now, there's actually a few different ways I can check to see if a string is a palindrome. And we're actually going to do 3 different ways in this video. So pause me for a second and see if you can come up with any of the ways to potentially do this. There's probably even more than the 3 that I'm going to go over, but I want you to think a little bit about how you could potentially do this. Okay, did you get your brain juices flowing? So 3 different ways. The first strategy that we're going to use to check if a string is a palindrome is going to involve this. Let's think about the string, I don't know, kayak. That was one of the palindromes. Oh, look, it's already down here on the list that we came up with earlier. And what is true for kayak to be a palindrome? Doesn't the first letter actually have to match the last letter? And the second letter has to match the second to last letter. And then actually the middle letter is just the middle letter. So there's this sense of, as a palindrome, if you are a valid palindrome, you have a matching letter on the other side of the string. That's what this one is going to check. So let's do this. What we're going to do is we're going to do a for loop through the first half of the letters of the string. In my for loop, I starts at 0, so I'm going to start by looking at the letter at index 0. It has a matching pair at the end of the string, which is the letter at kind of the length of the string minus 1. If those are the same, then I can keep going and checking. If they're not the same, I actually know right off the bat that this isn't a palindrome. If they are the same, then I can check the next one. I increases. I can check the letter at index 1 should be the same as the letter at index, the length of the string actually minus 2. And I can keep doing that. And if I finally get to the middle and I haven't said it's not a palindrome yet, that actually means it is a palindrome. So let's do this. Let's do for int I equals 0. I is less than str.length divided by 2. Like I said, we're going to go through the first half. I plus plus. Let's say string ch for character equals str.substring from I to I plus 1. Let's say string partner And this is where this is a little tricky because I kind of have to come up with a mathematical expression of how do I get the thing on the other side. Let's do this with a slightly longer example. So we're going to do this with the example of race car. And I'm just going to put the indexes up here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, let's say that I'm looking at the letter at index 0. Its partner is the letter at index 6. How do I relate those? Well, 0 is the first one and 6 is the last one. But it's not exactly the length of the string. How would I get the last letter in my string? Wouldn't I take a substring from the length of the string minus 1 to the end? And you can see that as my string CH kind of moves up as my for loop increases, its corresponding partner actually moves down. The index gets smaller. So what I'm going to put in here is this, str.substring from str.length minus 1. That's the very last one. And if I do minus I, that would actually get me down to the corresponding partner. And again, what I want is just a single letter. So let's do str.length minus I. If I do the substring from str.length minus 1 minus I to str.length minus I, that's going to be a single letter. Now I've written this on here and it looks kind of crazy, so let's think about it. str.substring from I to I plus 1 when I is 0 is going to be R. Partner goes from str.length minus 1 minus I, which is 0, so just str.length minus 1, to str.length. That's going to be the R in index 6. Then when I increases, this is going to be the substring from 1 to 2, which is going to be the A. This one is going to be the substring from the length is 7 minus 1 is 6 minus I is 1, so that's 5, to 7 minus I is 1, that's 6. So this is from 5 to 6. Isn't that actually this A? And you can see that we have this behavior that as I increases, character will move up in its index and partner will actually move down in its index. We're starting at the very last one and actually moving down by an index every single time. So now what do I want to do? Let's check if ch dot equals partner. Well, what do we know at this point? Do I know it's a palindrome yet? No, I actually don't, because couldn't this one actually be race far? And if I just checked the R against the R, I don't actually know that it's not a palindrome until I check this C against this F over here. So I don't actually know anything yet. I need to keep checking. So I'm actually just going to do nothing here. But if I go to this else, what does it mean? It means that these two were actually not the same, in which case I'm going to return false. Remember, I'm returning a Boolean here. That means no, this isn't a palindrome. When do I know it is a palindrome? Is if I get all the way on the outside of this for loop. I haven't returned false yet because that would have ended the method. Then I can return true. Let's go ahead and try this. Let me compile. And let's run the palindrome checker. So I'm going to try this with kayak. And it's a palindrome. Very exciting. Let's make sure it works when it's not a palindrome. So let's do, I don't know, cat. And it's not a palindrome. Now, this is pretty good, but there's one thing I don't love about it, which is that my favorite palindrome is this. Go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog. And right now it's going to say that's not a palindrome. Why is that the case? Remember, strings are case sensitive. And not only is it getting mad at actually the capital I versus the lowercase I have things in here like spaces and punctuation. I have a comma and an apostrophe. So just to make our lives a little bit easier, let's do this. string here, str equals read line. Right after this line, let's say str equals get just letters str. Now, this isn't a method that exists, but we're going to write it in just a second. So let's go down here and let's write the method public string get just letters, which is going to take a string str as a parameter. And what's the point of this? It's going to take this whole string and it's going to give me back a string that's made up of only the letters in that string. So no spaces, no punctuation, nothing like that. Now, there's a couple of different ways that I could think of to do this if we wanted to, but there's one that's a strategy we haven't really seen yet that I would like to show you. Here's how this strategy works. We're going to store a variable representing our result, so the string with only letters. And to start, I'm actually going to start with this result having nothing in it. So let's do string result equals quote quote. That's how I make an empty string, or a string with no characters in it. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to loop through every single letter in my string str. If that actually is a letter, I'm going to add it into the result. And if it's not a letter, I'm going to go ahead and skip over it. Now, clearly in that plan that I just said, I'm going to need to have some way of telling if something is a letter or not. So to make our lives a little easier, let's scroll up to the top and let's actually make a constant. Let's say private static final string alphabet equals, and we're going to type out the entire alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. You actually did not need to do that in order. You could have just kind of keyboard smashed all of the letters and made sure they were all in there. That would have worked too. Now, what are we going to do to check if something's a letter? I'm actually going to check if it's in the alphabet, which we know at this point we can do using index of. So let's go back down here and let's do that strategy that we were talking about. Let's loop through every letter or every character. We don't necessarily know that it's a letter in str. Check if it's in letters or in the alphabet. And then if it is, we're going to add it to the result. So let's do for int I equals 0. I is less than str.length, I plus plus. Let's do string, I'm going to call it ch because again, we don't know that it's a letter, equals str.substring from I to I plus 1. Then how do I check that this actually is a letter? I can check that it's in the alphabet. And again, we're going to do this using index of. So I'm going to say if alphabet dot index of ch, if it's in there, if ch is in the alphabet somewhere, then this would be greater than -1. That means it is in there. We're going to say result, and this is a new thing. If I want to add a string onto an existing variable, I use concatenation. We just learned that. So I can say result equals result plus ch. That totally works. Whatever result was before, add ch onto the end of it. But we also know that there's a shortcut for this. What else can I do is result plus equals ch. And this actually does work for strings as well as ints. For strings, the order here does actually matter though. For ints, you could say result equals 5 plus result, but for strings, the order is really important. It's important that the new thing I'm adding on actually comes at the end of what the string already was. Then at the very end of this, let's return result. All right, let's compile. And let's do one more thing here. Actually, let's just do it in here. In get just letters, let's do result equals result dot to lowercase. Just in case I type an uppercase letter, I want to make sure that I'm kind of forcing it to be lowercase. So let's compile this and let's try running this again. We already called get just letters, so let's do this. Enter a string, go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog. Oh no, I spelled lasagna wrong. Oh, that's so tragic. Okay, quickly, let's run it again. Go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog. Yay, it's a palindrome. So that was just one of the 3 ways we are going to be able to tell if a string is a palindrome or not. Let's do the other 2. So I'm going to scroll down here. That was the way that we did before. And again, what was the way that we were doing it was, hey, I'm going to check the first letter against its partner, and then the second letter against its partner, and the third letter against its partner, until I get all the way through the string. If I haven't said that one of those was not a match, that means it's a palindrome. Let's do another one. Let's do public Boolean is palindrome other string str. This is our other strategy, or one of the other strategies. What's going to be the top-down picture of this one? Well, we have our palindromes down here. In the strategy before, we were kind of doing the idea of looking letter by letter. Each one had a letter partner on the other side. But one other quality about a palindrome that's true is if you take the letters of a palindrome and actually flip them backwards, you get the exact same word as before. And this is a little hard to see with an example that is a palindrome, so let me show you with an example that's not. Let's say I have the word cat, and I actually flip that so that all the letters are the opposite order. That would be tack. The fact that these are actually 2 different words means that cat is not a palindrome. Unlike if you think about the word mom, if I actually flip the order so that the first letter is the third letter and the third letter is the first letter, right? I'm kind of reversing the way that I make it. I still get mom back. So what we're going to do in this strategy is we're going to build up what we're going to call the backward string of the original string. And then at the very end, we're going to check and see if they're the same. So to do this, notice I said kind of build up. Didn't we just do a method where we were building up a string from scratch? We're going to do a very similar thing here. So let's do string backwards equals quote, quote. And similar to what I did in the last one, I am going to kind of for loop through all of the letters in the string. So let's do for int I equals 0, I is less than str.length, I plus plus. I was really careful about saying this when I said it earlier, that the order that I add on a string to another string matters. Saying, I don't know, cat plus mom as strings is not actually the same thing as saying mom plus cat, right? This one would be cat mom and this one would be mom cat, 2 completely different strings. It's the same thing when I add a string onto an existing string like I was doing up here. The order actually really matters. So let's go down here and let's do the same thing. Let's grab the letter. So string letter equals str.substring I to I plus 1. Then we're going to do this. Backwards equals letter plus backwards. Notice how the order here is different than what I had before. And let's think about how this is actually working with the example of cat. If I'm going through cat, let's store, this is going to be the string of backwards down here. When I first start this for loop, I is 0. So letter is going to be 0 to 1, which is C. Then I'm going to say backwards, which is empty right now, equals C plus whatever backwards was. All right, then I increases. I is now 1, so I'm grabbing the letter from 1 to 2. And what am I saying? Backwards equals this new letter plus whatever backwards was. So the letter comes first, then whatever backwards was. Then I increases. I is now 2. I'm looking at the letter from 2 to 3, which is this T. Backwards equals the letter, which is T, plus whatever backwards was. Do you see how that in changing the order here as to what I had it before, I'm actually flipping the string. I'm making it now be backwards. So what do I need to do at the end of this? We're going to check if backwards dot equals str. Doesn't that actually mean it's a palindrome? Let's return true. Else, let's return false. And let's just double check that this works. Let's make this up here is palindrome other, and let's compile and run it. And let's not do go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hug, let's do kayak. And it looks like it does work. And let's just double check, does the opposite also work? Let's do cat, which clearly is not a palindrome. It actually does say no, it's not a palindrome. One more strategy. This strategy is actually pretty similar to the first strategy. Let's do this. Let's do public Boolean palindrome is. I'm just naming these all different because we can't have the methods all be named the same thing. And let's do string str. Now, in the first strategy, we were checking every letter against its opposite partner. And to do that, we were looping through the first half of the string and then finding the partner on the other side. There's a slightly different variation of that strategy that looks something a little more like this. Let's check the first letter against the last letter. If those are the same, great, I can keep going and keep looking. I'm going to chop off the first and the last letter, make the string be everything but those two, and then I can keep on continually checking the first letter against the last letter. This strategy is kind of nice because I don't actually have to worry about that crazy math that we did before to try to figure out who's my partner. This one's actually going to be a little nicer. This is actually going to use a while loop, which is a little different than what we had before. So let's do this. Let's do while. When am I actually done with this process is when I have no more letters left to check, or maybe just one more letter, like a center letter, right? Kayak, the Y doesn't have a matching pair, but that's okay. So let's do this. While str.length is greater than 1, there's still more than one letter for me to check against. Let's grab the first letter and the last letter. So string first equals str.substring from 0 to 1. Let's do string last equals, how do I get the last letter? It's str.substring str.length minus 1, and I actually don't have to give it a second number because that just takes me to the end. Then I can check if first dot equals last. Well, if they are equal, then I actually don't want to do anything. I don't know that it's a palindrome yet, but I don't know that it's not. I just kind of need to keep going. Since I want to keep going, I'm going to update my string to just be from the first character to the second to last character. I'm now cutting off the first and the last. So let's do str equals str.substring from 1 to str.length minus 1. Again, I'm cutting off those letters that I just checked because those ones were good. If I get to this else, that means that the first was not equal to the last, which means what do I know? I can return false right away. This is not a palindrome. When do I know it is a palindrome? Well, when I run out of letters to check, because that means I've checked them all and they all have a matching partner at the back. So then I can return true. Let's test this. So let's compile. Palindrome is what I called it. So let's go up here and let's change this to palindrome is and then compile. And let's run it. And let's do taco cat. And it's a palindrome. And let's do race car. And it's a palindrome. And let's do one that's not. Dog. Nope, not a palindrome. And of course, just for old time's sake, hopefully I type it correctly. We'll see. Uh-oh. Yay! It's a palindrome. So, three different ways to solve the same problem. I think all have their own benefits and drawbacks, right? I actually weirdly think the very first one we did was probably the hardest. I think that the kind of making the backward string took knowing this little trick, but this one was a little more straightforward and kind of easy to understand. I think this last one was maybe the hardest one to understand the strategy for what we were doing, but actually ended up being not too crazy with the string methods.